Have you ever looked back at a close relationship in your life and suddenly realized you were being used all along without even knowing it? Maybe it started with a sweet compliment, a kind gesture, someone who was always there for you. And yet, the deeper you went, the more drained, confused, and alone you felt. Have you ever known someone who makes grand promises but never follows through? Someone who makes you feel guilty for trying to grow? Or maybe someone you trusted deeply only to realize they used what they knew best about you to hurt you? 2,500 years ago, the Buddha already saw these patterns. In a time when Indian society was changing rapidly from the rise of merchants to shifts in power and politics, he identified the most dangerous kinds of people, those who wear the mask of friendship, but quietly destroy our inner peace and spiritual path. And the truth is, his teachings weren't just for his time. They were a guide for all of us, even now. Because these types of people still exist in our workplaces, on social media, sometimes even in our own families or closest circles. So, who exactly did the Buddha warn us about? Who are these 5 people that can silently ruin your life? And more importantly, how can we recognize them before it's too late? Let's begin. 1. The eternal victim. Some people come into your life not with harsh words or direct harm, but in a quieter, more subtle way, just as dangerous. They make you carry the weight of their emotions. They are always the hurt one, always the helpless one, living in the shadow of pain and refusing to step out of it. One day, you might wake up and realize you've spent too much time comforting, explaining, trying to prove I didn't do anything wrong, while the other person still clings to the victim role like a heavy coat they won't take off. It's no longer compassion, it's exhaustion. It's no longer support, it's emotional depletion. The Buddha taught, we don't suffer because of what happens to us. We suffer because of our attachment to it. And those who constantly see themselves as victims, they're not just hurt, they've become identified with their pain. It's no longer, I was hurt once, but rather, I am someone who is always hurt. There's a story about a beggar who sat near the gates of a monastery. Every day, he told passers-by the same tale, how he used to be a rich merchant, how he was betrayed, how his family abandoned him. People brought him food and clothes, but he never changed. He said, if I'm not the victim anymore, then who am I? That question sounds small, but it hits deep. Because once someone wraps their identity around suffering, they don't want to heal. They just want to be seen as someone who's been hurt. And that creates a subtle kind of emotional manipulation, one that makes others feel responsible for their happiness, like they owe them healing, comfort, or attention. You see this in real life all the time in families, at work, among friends. The kind of person who makes you feel guilty for being happy. They'll say things like, I wish I was as lucky as you, or I have nothing left anyway. And they leave you with a heavy heart, as if your joy is somehow a burden. But here's the thing. Compassion doesn't mean letting yourself be emotionally drowned. The Buddha taught, compassion must walk hand in hand with wisdom. Otherwise, it becomes a partner of ignorance. Helping someone doesn't mean carrying their karma. It means handing them a lantern, but they still have to take the steps. Those who cling to victimhood don't want to change, because if they do, they lose the sympathy they're used to receiving. They don't want healing because pain has become a part of who they are. And if you're not careful, you get pulled into that cycle, always trying to prove you're good enough, kind enough, caring enough, while they keep asking for more and offering nothing in return. There was once a lay follower who asked me during a Dharma talk, if I stop comforting them, does that make me heartless? I smiled and replied, no, it means you're protecting your compassion from being misused. We need to learn the difference between someone who's truly in pain and wants to heal, and someone who uses pain as a weapon to control others. Sometimes, saying no to emotional attachment is the most compassionate act you can do. From what I've seen in working with many middle-aged and older Buddhists here in the West, this type of person shows up often, and they leave people exhausted, unsure why they feel so drained after every conversation. Always in the role of the healer, while having no space left for themselves, because kindness, without boundaries, becomes a trap. A sweet trap that pulls us away from the path, away from inner stillness. The Buddha said, "Wisdom is the ability to stay unmoved between praise and blame. True freedom is staying steady between sympathy and guilt." So, if there's someone in your life who always makes you feel guilty, who lives in their past pain and refuses to grow, maybe it's time to step back. Not to abandon them, but to see more clearly. Do they really need compassion? Or do they just need confirmation that they're still the victim? And are you truly helping them grow? Or just giving them one more reason to stay in the dark? Because once we learn to recognize the eternal victim, we begin to understand that not every wounded heart wants to be healed. And up next, we'll meet another kind of person, not weak, not wounded, but sweet, charming, likable, and yet dangerously misleading. Let's keep going. 2. The sweet talker. Some people walk into your life with a bright smile, a warm greeting, and a gift in hand. They know exactly how to make others feel special. They say all the right things. They show up with presents, kind words, and always seem to appear at just the right moment. But over time, the curtain slowly pulls back. And what you start to see is that the kindness wasn't real. The words didn't come from the heart. The gifts, the gestures, the warmth, they weren't rooted in love. They were rooted in intention. Back in the Buddha's time, these people were known as Mithapaka, the ones who wear the mask of friendship. They don't hurt you with anger or aggression. They charm you. They use compliments, generosity, and well-timed sweetness. But there's always a hidden condition behind it all. There's an old story from the city of Rajagaha. A wealthy merchant named Ananda, not the Buddha's disciple, just someone with the same name, was well known for being generous and sincere. One day, a stranger came to him. This man had the gift of speech, a confident look, and business ideas that sounded too good to pass up. He spoke of partnerships, big profits, mutual growth. He gave Ananda expensive gifts, even made big donations at the monastery, but only when others were watching. At first, Ananda trusted him completely. But as time went on, something felt off. There were plenty of promises, but very little action. Plenty of praise, but when real help was needed, the man was nowhere to be found. Worse, he subtly began planting seeds of doubt. Your friends don't understand our vision. They're jealous of your success. At that time, the Buddha was staying at the Bamboo Grove Monastery. He pointed out something very important. A true friend doesn't only show up when the lights are on. They're present even when no one's watching. Real friendship isn't conditional, and it's never built on personal gain. Fast forward to today, and the sweet talker is still very much around. They show up at work smiling and kind until they need your signature. They give you big birthday gifts, but vanish when you're grieving. They show up on social media with healing words, but it's really just a lead-in to sell a product or build a brand. Now here's the tricky part. Many of them don't even realize they're doing harm. They've learned how to survive by pleasing people. They're not necessarily evil, but they're not genuine either. And that's what makes it so dangerous. Because you don't know when you're being used. You don't know which stories you shared in confidence are being used to build someone else's ladder. The deepest wound they leave behind isn't losing money or time. It's losing faith in human sincerity. The Buddha once said, "Sweet words without action are like a beautiful flower with no fragrance." In the practice of Dharma, he always reminded us, words must come from the heart and actions must come from mindfulness. Otherwise, it's all just surface deceiving both others and ourselves. Many mature Buddhists, especially those who've been through deep relationships, share a common feeling. They were used by someone they once deeply trusted. And the hardest part? It's not forgiving. It's learning how to trust again. So how do you recognize the sweet talker? Let time do the work. Time is the fairest test of all. A true friend doesn't need to flatter you every day or buy gifts to prove they care. They're just there when it matters most, without an audience. But the sweet talker? They fear silence. They need to speak. They need to perform. Because deep down, they know that if they stop trying, there's nothing left. I remember a woman during a mindfulness retreat once shared, "For 2 years, I thought I was special to someone. Then I realized I was just one piece in a string of relationships he used to get ahead." And that story, sadly, it's not rare. And after experiences like that, people don't just protect themselves, they start building walls, not just around their hearts, but around their lives. But the Buddha reminded us, don't close your heart to all just because one person deceived you. Mindfulness means seeing each situation clearly, not confusing the particular with the whole. 3. The secret enemy. There's a kind of pain that's quiet, one that doesn't scream or announce itself, the kind that comes from someone you trusted most. Not an enemy, not a stranger, but someone who once called themselves your best friend. Someone who held your hand through the storm, knew your deepest secrets, stood by your side when you were at your lowest. And yet, one day, they're the very person who set the collapse in motion. These wounds don't leave bruises. There's no big betrayal scene, no dramatic argument, no clear proof. Just a quiet crack, an uneasy feeling, a whisper in your gut that something's not right but no words to explain it. In the Buddha's time, such people were called papamita, the enemy disguised as a friend. And what makes them dangerous isn't what they do in public, but what they hide in silence. They don't attack you face to face. They go around the edges. Not like a fire that burns, more like water that slowly rots the wood from within. Until one day, everything falls apart and no one can tell when it even started. There's an old story from the Buddha's time. A young merchant named Vedika had a childhood friend. They grew up together, studied together, started businesses together. They shared everything. People used to say they were inseparable. But as Vedika began to succeed, the friend grew quieter, not by leaving, but by staying too close. He didn't walk away. He watched. He gathered information. He whispered small comments here and there. Vedika's business is doing well, but he's just lucky. I heard his big client is having problems. Hope it doesn't affect him. He seems busy lately. He's changed a lot. Each comment seemed harmless, but together they formed a cloud of doubt. And that's the real danger. They don't just damage your reputation. They shake your trust. They strain your relationships. They make you question people who genuinely care about you. And by the time you finally see it, it's already too late. The Buddha compared this kind of person to termites in a pillar. On the outside, the structure looks solid, but inside, it's been hollowed out long ago. Not every smile comes from goodwill, and not every kind word comes from compassion. The Buddha warned, people like this don't always mean to harm. Sometimes, they just can't handle watching you grow beyond them. Over the years, listening to stories from mature Buddhists in America, people who've lived, worked, built deep relationships, one thing comes up again and again. The deepest betrayals don't come from enemies, but from old friends. The college roommate, the coworker who had your back for years, the neighbor who felt like family. They don't betray by leaving. They betray by staying and slowly draining the trust and goodness from the inside out. Why does it happen? Because deep down, They carry the wound of jealousy. They don't know how to deal with their own sense of lack. So instead of rising up, they pull others down. They don't think of themselves as bad people, just as balancing the scales. But the scariest part isn't even them. It's our own refusal to believe it. We don't want to think someone we loved could hurt us. So we justify, we ignore, we excuse. And it's that denial that makes us most vulnerable. There's a teaching from the Anguttara Nikaya that says, quote, "A true friend does not use what they know about you to harm you. A true friend protects your name even when you're not in the room." So ask yourself, is there someone in your life that leaves you feeling uneasy every time you see them? Someone you feel you need to guard yourself around, even if you don't know why? Have you ever shared something personal and it somehow found its way into the wrong hands? Those aren't just coincidences, those are signs. But Buddhism doesn't teach us to live in suspicion. It teaches us to live in awareness. Being mindful doesn't mean closing your heart. It means keeping it clear. No resentment, no naivety, just wisdom. In one Dharma talk, a lay follower shared how his close friend had secretly passed along financial details that caused damage to his business. He asked the Buddha whether he should cut ties completely. The Buddha replied gently, "Don't hand the key to your treasure to someone who has once broken your trust." A soft word, but a sharp truth. So yes, give your trust, but give it wisely. And remember, forgiveness is for your own freedom, not for giving someone permission to hurt you again. Forgiveness does not mean blindness. 4. The empty promiser. Some people don't deceive you through their actions, but through promises that never take shape. They don't do anything obviously wrong. There's nothing you can point at and say, "That's where they failed me." Because all they do is talk. They talk about a brighter future. They paint big dreams, spark hope, inspire you, and then disappear when it's time to act. And the heartbreaking part is, you don't know whether to blame them or blame yourself for believing. The Buddha called this type Vyaparama people who worship words but avoid action. They live in promises. They live in language. Not because they're intentionally lying, but because they believe their own stories. In their mind, everything they say will happen, just not yet. They might be the friend who keeps saying they'll change. They'll start meditating. They'll get healthy. They'll leave the toxic job. They'll be kinder, better, more present. But year after year, the promises repeat. They sound beautiful, but they never take a single step. There's a story from the Buddha's time about a young monk who stood in front of the Sangha and declared, "I will reach enlightenment in 1 month. I will meditate day and night without fail." Everyone was moved. The Buddha smiled, but said nothing. A week passed. The monk said he was tired, then busy. Then he asked to skip a meditation session just to recharge. The month ended. Enlightenment didn't arrive, only excuses did. And a new promise, "I just need 1 more month." And so the cycle went on. The Buddha taught, a promise without action is like a flower without scent. It might catch the eye, but it has no life. In the Dhammapada, he said, "Speaking many words doesn't make one wise." The one who lives by the Dhamma, even if they speak little, they are truly wise. And in today's world, these people are everywhere. They're charismatic. They sound convincing. They make you believe this time will be different. They might be the coworker with endless new project ideas but never start one. The friend who writes 10-page plans but doesn't begin the first step. And sometimes they're us in certain seasons of life. Many longtime Buddhists here in the West have shared stories of putting faith in a promise that never came true. A father who promised to change for the family. A partner who promised to listen more. A business partner who said they'd finally commit. But in the end, the only thing that remained was the promise. What makes this kind of person dangerous isn't deception. It's the belief they generate. Because they believe what they're saying, so you believe it too. And suddenly, you start building plans on hope, not reality. One of the deepest wounds is waiting without end. Like planting a seed on stone and waiting forever for it to bloom. But Buddhism doesn't reduce people to their flaws. The Buddha understood. Some people live in illusion because they lack the courage to face truth. These people are often trapped in their own cycle of delay. They fear failure, so they choose to live inside a promise. In their imagination, they've already succeeded. They've already changed. And honestly, that feels a lot safer than reality. In one of his talks, the Buddha once said, "Some spend all their time drawing a path but never walk it. Others take small, quiet steps and eventually arrive." So how do we recognize an empty promiser and avoid becoming one ourselves? It's simpler than we think. Just observe time. Words can persuade, but only actions prove. Someone who's truly changing doesn't need to announce it. They just begin. Small, quiet, consistent steps. Day by day, their transformation speaks for itself. If someone like this is in your life, observe them kindly. But don't invest your emotions in their promises. Listen to your heart. It knows when it's safe to hope and when it's time to let go. 5. The enabler, the one who makes it easy to stay stuck. Not everyone who stands beside you is truly helping you. There are people who are incredibly gentle, so kind, always ready to say, "It's okay, everyone goes through this." They soothe you. They make your mistakes feel lighter. They give your procrastination a reason that sounds justified. They might be a friend, a family member, someone who's always there, but in a deeper sense, they're actually keeping you stuck in the very place you're supposed to grow out of. In Buddhism, the Buddha called this kind of person a Paya Sahaya, a companion who gently leads you away from the path of awakening, not with force, but with excessive comfort. There's a story from the Buddha's time about a young novice named Channa. Channa was sweet, kind, and well-liked by the community, but he had a habit. He always postponed his meditation practice. When it rained, he'd say, "Not today, the weather's too gloomy." When the sun was shining, "It's too beautiful to stay indoors, maybe a walk would be better." And when others reminded him, his friends would jump in to defend him. "He needs rest. He's been doing a lot already." Instead of reminding him, they made excuses. Instead of lifting him up, they pampered him. And day by day, Channa drifted further from the path, even though he still lived inside the monastery walls. It sounds confusing at first, because kindness shouldn't be criticized, right? But the Buddha taught, compassion without wisdom becomes a form of ignorance. When someone says, "It's okay, you deserve to rest," even when you're giving up on something important that's no longer compassion, that's a form of false comfort. And in today's world, the enabler wears many masks. It's the friend who always says, "Just eat it, one meal won't hurt. Buy it, you deserve a treat. Skip it today, do it tomorrow." These comments sound so warm, so supportive, but repeated enough times, they chip away at your ability to rise above yourself. In a meditation class here in the US, a middle-aged woman once shared, "I had a friend who always told me I didn't need to try so hard. Every time I wanted to start exercising or eat healthier, she'd say, 'You've already been through enough. Just live for yourself.' I used to see her as my safe space, but now I realize I've delayed caring for myself for years because someone kept telling me I didn't need to try. And that story isn't rare. Because sometimes what we need to hear isn't agreement. It's a gentle reminder you've forgotten the path you once said you wanted to walk. The Buddha never used harsh words to teach his students, but he also never sugarcoated the truth. He once said, "When someone speaks a truth that benefits you and others, even if it stings, that truth deserves respect." A real friend isn't someone who always agrees with you. It's someone who loves you enough not to let you stay stuck in your own inertia. Because the enabler doesn't just make you feel okay while you're sliding downhill. They make you stop growing without you even realizing it. Think about someone who once made you give up on a goal with just a soft word. Someone who talked you into putting things off, who made you feel content with staying still, even though deep down you knew you needed to change. That's the shadow of the enabler, the one who seems helpful, but is quietly halting your momentum. But more importantly, let's turn the mirror on ourselves. Have you ever been the enabler? Maybe out of love you told someone, "It's okay, don't push yourself," even when you knew they were moving backward. Helping someone is an art, and it doesn't always mean soothing. Sometimes it means standing quietly beside them and saying, "I know you're tired, but you're stronger than you think." In the Anguttara Nikaya, the Buddha said, "There are 4 kinds of true friends: those who help you grow in virtue, who encourage your practice, who prevent you from doing harm, and who walk the path of goodness with you. The enabler is not one of them. So honor those who dare to remind you of your vows, who speak up when you're drifting, because they're helping you avoid the trap of comfort without meaning." These 5 types, the victim, the flatterer, the hidden enemy, the empty promiser, and the enabler, they all share one thing in common. They blur your path, not through force, but through influence. And if you're not aware, you might just mistake that influence for support. So, we've just walked through 5 types of people who can silently harm your life, not with weapons, but through subtle influence over your mind and emotions. But please remember, the Buddha didn't teach these things to make us fearful or suspicious of life. He taught them so we could live with greater clarity. Peace doesn't come from avoiding people. It comes from the ability to see clearly, to recognize, and to choose the right people to walk with. A true friend isn't someone who always makes you feel comfortable. A true friend is someone who helps you grow. They may be honest, even challenging, but they show up with sincerity, even when no one's watching. They help you become a better version of yourself by refusing to let you settle for less. And if you have someone like that in your life, hold them close. Don't wait until it's too late to realize a real friendship is a rare and precious blessing. If today's video touched something in your heart, maybe send it to the friend who once helped you keep going when all you wanted was to give up. Let it be a quiet thank you. Let it be your way of planting a new seed of awareness in this world. And if you found value in what we shared today, please consider subscribing to Buddhism Seeds, where we explore the Buddha's wisdom in ways that speak to our modern lives. Don't forget to like the video, share it with someone you care about, and drop a comment below. Let us know what part resonated with you the most. There is still so much we can walk through together on this path of awareness. And I look forward to seeing you again in the next video.